Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video here, we're going to be revisiting our friend the PSP yet again, because I'm going to be showing you all how you can set up a magic memory stick, not using a PSP actually. I'll show you all how you can do all of this here on your computer. Now, you might want to have something like this on hand if you have a PSP, if you're wanting to make sure you can recover it just in case. If you're into modifying PSPs in any way, it's not a bad thing to have. Now, keep in mind when you make your memory stick a magic memory stick, it will still work and operate like a standard memory stick. However, there's going to be a few special files injected into that memory stick, which then allow it to be used as a recovery tool in conjunction with something such as a Pandora battery, or even making use of the recovery features through the cIPL on ARK-4 Custom Firmware. Now, I've shown this here a couple times. Most recently, I end up showing this here using Despertar del Cementerio, which does run on a PSP, and it does require a running PSP and that PSP to also have custom firmware installed to it. However, this will be for people who might not have access to a working PSP, or they might not have custom firmware installed on their system for whatever reason. Really, instead of using the PSP here to make our memory stick, we're going to be making the memory stick on our computer. Additionally, I've also shown this years ago in a video I made covering the Pandora battery. However, that was using some older tools, and this is going to be using a newer tool sets, and of course be updated for the latest official firmware and the latest custom firmware variants. So if you want to learn how to do this here, there's going to be a few things you're going to need. The first thing you're going to need here is a memory stick of some kind. Now, this can be either an official Memory Stick Pro Duo, or it can be using a microSD card using a Memory Stick Pro Duo to microSD card adapter. Additionally, if you have a PSP Go that you intend to run this on, you will have to use an external storage device instead of the internal storage, which means you're going to have an M2 card and be able to connect it to your PC, or you're going to need an M2 to microSD card adapter installed in your PSP Go. But just keep that in mind. For myself, I'm going to be using one of these adapters, but since I'm not going to use the system at all for this, I'm going to be using one of these microSD to USB adapters on my computer, as well as my microSD card on hand. So with that, go ahead, get your storage and adapters and move over to your PC. Now, giving credit where credit is due, I'm going to be linking and referencing the DC-ARK-Maker page from the ARK-4 wiki written by Brennan Murphy, otherwise known as Crazy Nez. Now, they ended up writing this here, and it's a great write-up showing what I'm going to be doing here on video. I'll have it linked down below in the description, not just for the credit, but also in case you need to reference a written guide here. If there's something that's not completely clarified in this video, this guide will be available because this is really what I'm basing this video on. The first thing we're going to need is the ARK-4 Custom Firmware package. We really don't need to go through this section here. However, what we can do is download the latest build of it. Just go over to the releases area, but click on the actual latest release right here. Not the releases tab, but click on the build itself. Once you come over to this page showing you the latest build, go ahead and download the latest zip file. Now, the next thing you're going to need here is Python 3. If you have not installed this already, or you're needing to upgrade it, you can follow along with this. And the nice thing is, since we are going to be using a Python script, this is going to be OS agnostic for the most part. What I mean by that is, since this is a script, you'll be able to follow along with this on Linux, Mac, or Windows. Even though I'm using Windows for this, you still need Python. That is going to be a requirement. So I'm going to have this linked down below in the description. You can go ahead and download this onto your PC, and we'll work on installing it. For this here, you're also going to need the 6.61 official firmware. In order to get this here, I'm going to have this linked down below in the description, which will be Darth Sterney's firmware archive for the PSP firmwares. And in short, if you have a PSP Go, you're going to want to get the 6.61 PSP Go firmware. And if you do not have a PSP Go, meaning you have a 1000, 2000, 3000, or Street, scroll up, and we're going to be using the standard PSP official firmware. Now, at the time of recording, the mega links do not work, but the archive ones do work. Just go ahead and download your firmware and save it somewhere you can easily find it. So you should have a couple things here. You're going to have the Python installer, or I suppose manager here, now that that's changed a little bit, and you're going to have the ARK-4 zip file. Let's go ahead and work on Python. If you're using the install manager, it will look a little like this. I'm going to go ahead, let it launch when ready, and click on install Python. Now, whether you're installing this for the first time or upgrading it, you are going to have to add Python to your path. That's PATH right here. So we can go ahead and say Y to this and hit enter. And it looks like we also need to get the latest Python runtime. So I can say Y and then enter yet again. And there we go, it's installing. Now that it looks like it's done, I'll go ahead, hit in and hit enter, and that's it, it's been installed now. Now I've created a shortcut here for command prompt because that's primarily what we're going to be using for launching Python. So what you can do is, if you're using command prompt here, right click and then run as administrator just to make sure it's elevated. To test that this is working, you can type in py and then hit enter. And if that comes up, congratulations. So I'm going to do exit with parentheses, and Python, we can do the same thing there. Exit, yep, that's working just fine. So let's go ahead and get this running. We can go ahead and minimize our administrator command prompt for now. Now find your ark4.zip file, and if you're using something such as 7-zip, you can extract it into its own folder like so. Once you have the folder extracted, go ahead, open it up, and there's going to be several folders in here that we can dig through. The one we're looking for is in PC, and it's going to be the Magic Memory Creator. Right in here, this has everything that we're going to need. Now we will have to change into this directory here, so in order to do that, if you're using the File Explorer here, you can navigate up to the top, click in the blank space here of the path, and it will highlight the path where this is currently residing. What we can do is right click and copy this out. I'm going to minimize this for now, go ahead, open up command prompt, and from here, type in cd space, put in double quotes, and then right click right there, put in double quote again, and hit enter. So there we go, we've been able to navigate there. If this is not on your C drive, like if this is on a D drive or an F drive, for example, you are going to have to enter that drive name. So for example, like E:, just like that, to change over to your E drive. But since I'm not doing that here, I'll go back to C, and there we go, we're in the right directory. So to get our preliminary requirements installed, we're going to have to type in python space -m space pip space install space -r space requirements .txt and hit enter. What it's going to do is it's going to go through and download all the requirements that are going to be needed for this and then install them within your local Python instance. So it looks like everything was able to install successfully. There were a few warnings here, but just giving the warnings a read on my end, these ones seem to be fine mainly for my own usage. So I've just went ahead and cleared out the screen, and let's minimize command prompt yet again. Now before we start, as a heads up here, it would at least be recommended to format your microSD card. And I'll be honest here, the most reliable way I found to format the microSD card to work on the PSP has just been formatting it on the PSP itself. You don't necessarily have to do it, but if you don't have data that you care about, or if you just want to back it up and then format it, then that would usually be better to start with a clean base. But mind you, I just formatted this in my system, so it should be working and it is recognized there. And again, that is the important thing. This needs to be formatted not just to MBR and FAT32, but it needs to actually work on your system. And again, the best way I found to get that to work is just formatting it directly in the console itself. Now this step here, you can go ahead and load up your command prompt, and it would be most recommended to disconnect any other storage devices from your computer and then only hook up your PSP's storage. You can see right here, this is my drive here, it's the H drive, and it is a 64GB micro SD card. However, we do also need to verify the disk number itself. If you're on Windows, you can go ahead and open up Disk Management, and from here, we're going to be looking for our drive. So I'm going to scroll down, and I know this one here, the removable drive disk 5, 58GB FAT32, this one is my PSP storage. So disk 5, that's the number I'm keeping on hand. We can close out of this now. Now to get DC-ARK-Maker running, what we'll need to do is type in python space main.py and hit enter. It'll bring up some text like this, but it's also going to bring up the DC-ARK-Maker, which is exactly what we need. Now there's only a couple things that you need to do here. First of all, what you'll need to do is navigate to this button right here, click it. There will be a drop-down menu that comes up, and you're going to have to select your disk. Now, like I recommended before, disconnect other storage devices if you can, and only have your PSP storage hooked up. Since I only have my micro SD card hooked up, I'm going to select disk 5. Next, you'll need to browse for a local 6.61 official firmware. Click on this button right here, and it'll bring up this window. Now navigate over, and you just need to find whichever firmware you're going to be using. Like I said, if you're using a PSP Go, use the Go firmware. If you're not using a PSP Go, use the other firmware, the standard one. Go ahead, open that up, and you can see in the background that it's been selected. Now for our options here, do not touch Legacy IPL, do not touch Inject IPL, and there's only two that you really need to worry about. The first one here is going to be PSP Go model. This is pretty self-explanatory, but if you have a PSP Go, check this. Now click on Browse Local 6.61 Official Firmware and pick the PSP Go firmware. Since I do not have a PSP Go, I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm going to use the standard one like so. The second one here will be completely optional, but if you have a PSP 1000 and you're interested in the 1.5 kernel add-on, you could do the same thing. You can enable this and then look for a 1.5 firmware. I'm not going to be doing that, so I'm going to uncheck this, and this right here is going to be what most people are going to be going with. Unless you have a PSP Go, none of these need to be checked. You just need your 6.61 official firmware, make sure your disk has been selected, and once you're ready to go, click on Run. It's going to run everything in the background here. Once that's done, it's going to copy everything, give it a few moments depending on the speed of your adapter and your SD card, and as you can see, that is it. Now you're going to want to look at the command prompt to make sure that there's not any big errors right here. Mine was able to run successfully, but you can see a few things that it's upset by. However, from what I see, these are not going to be anything showstopper related. I'll even open up the storage device itself, so navigate in here. There's a new folder called TM, and inside of, let's see, DC-ARK, what is one I know? VSH, resource. You could see that your flash files are right here and everything's looking good. So it looks like everything was able to extract, configure, and set up properly after being copied over. So with that done, we can close out of DC-ARK-Maker and close out of the command prompt window. Now navigate over to your storage device, go ahead, eject it, and take it over to your PSP in order to give it a try. At this point now, congratulations, you now have a little bit more protection and you have a nice recovery device because you have been able to create your own magic memory stick. Now if you want to actually utilize this, you can either use Baryon Sweeper, Pandora Battery, or you can even use the custom IPL that comes with ARK-4 if you have installed it. In order to do that, for example, if you have a PSP with ARK-4 and the custom IPL installed, what you can do is turn off your system, make sure your storage has been connected, and then hold down the left shoulder button while you turn on the system. If it brings up this menu right here, congratulations, you are good to go. And from here, you can go through these steps of installing 6.61 official firmware or even installing 6.61 with the latest ARK custom firmware. Either way, that is about it for this video here. Hopefully it helped out, hopefully you all enjoyed it, hopefully you all got to learn something, and if you did any of those things, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.